Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I will be discussing the husbandry of the lesser hedgehog tenrec, specifically going into the ideal environment for a tenrec and how to achieve this. So to understand how to create the best possible environment for the tenrec, we first have to consider where it is they come from. So tenrecs are native to Madagascar. Madagascar is a very hot and humid place, so therefore their environment that you create for them needs to be hot and humid. The first step to creating this environment would be to use a vivarium, similar to the one that I have shown on screen. The minimum size you would like for this vivarium would be 3 foot by 2 foot by 1 foot. This is because they do like to run, they also like to climb. Anything smaller would be too small. Some people prefer to keep their tenrecs in a cage over a vivarium, and whilst cages do provide more climbing opportunities for the tenrec than a vivarium would, it's much harder to keep the temperature consistent. So the first thing that you would need to add to your vivarium would be the source of the heat. A good thing to use would be a ceramic heat bulb. As you can see in the photo, this is surrounded by a cage. I would always recommend getting a cage if you are going to use a heat bulb. This is just to make sure that your tenrec can't get anywhere close to the bulb and end up hurting or burning themselves. As with using any heat equipment with exotic animals, you would need to use a thermostat. This is just to make sure that the bulb doesn't get too hot or overheat, and it keeps the environment to a nice and steady temperature. I would of course also recommend using a thermometer, which you can place inside the enclosure, just to make sure that you're keeping a close eye on the temperature. So the placement of the thermostat gauge is also important. As you can see on the image, I have circled an area which would be the ideal area for you to put your temperature gauge. It means that one side of the environment is the temperature you want it to be, it's nice and warm, and then the other half is a bit cooler, meaning that your tenrec can choose between whether it wants to be in the nice warm area or the slightly cooler area. However, you will probably find that they will choose to spend most of their time in the warmer area regardless. Moving on to the ideal temperature for you to set your thermostat to. Tenrecs tend to sit happiest at anything above 25 degrees centigrade. However, I found the temperature where my tenrec is the most happy tends to sit around the 28-degree mark. So I'm now going to discuss why temperature is so important. So if the temperature does fall below 25 degrees centigrade, it triggers something in tenrecs called torpor. Now, torpor is a state of semi-hibernation. So it just means that the tenrec will be eating a lot less, drinking a lot less, their metabolism will slow right down, they'll be cold to the touch, and they will be sleeping pretty much all of the time. Now, this is a state that, of course, tenrecs will naturally go into in the wild if the temperature does drop below 25 degrees centigrade, but it does put a lot of strain on their body. So when they're in captivity, if you can avoid it by keeping it nice and warm for them year round above 25 degrees, I would definitely recommend doing so, just for the sake of the tenrec's health. So now we've got the heating element covered, moving on to the humidity element. Now, this is an important part of the tenrec's environment. It will need to be nice and humid in their enclosure. If you have the heat and none of the humidity, it's going to dry the skin out. It's going to make it all flaky and sore, and they might even lose a couple of quills. They're just not going to be a particularly happy animal. So you can negate this issue by just buying a standard spray bottle, just like when you use to water your plants, just to be able to give the enclosure a good misting every single day. I recommend doing it every day in the morning, and it just keeps it nice and humid in their enclosure, and again it negates any dry skin or quill loss issues. So just to summarise, make sure that you're using a vivarium over a cage where you can. You're controlling the temperature to keep it above 25 degrees to stop the tenrec going into torpor, and also making sure you're keeping the humidity up by giving it a nice mist every single day, just with a bit of water. So whilst I've covered a few things in today's video, I've only really scratched the surface as far as tenrec husbandry and care goes. They are an exotic animal, so they do require a bit more upkeep and a bit more care than perhaps your average pet might. So I will be releasing videos in the future discussing their diet, any supplementation, and anything else that needs to go into their enclosure to really enrich their experience. So if you would be interested in seeing those videos, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and turn notification bells on, so whenever I release these information videos, you'll be the first to be notified. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.